Hi there guys, I hope you are having a good day. Now I have to say I'm quite impressed by the performance from Billy Joe Saunders against Canelo. 8th round TKO victory for Canelo, but things leading up to that stoppage weren't all going Canelo's way. It wasn't like he broke Billy Joe Saunders down, then stopped him. It wasn't a beatdown. Billy Joe Saunders was finding his way into the fight, which was quite surprising given the start that Canelo had. So Billy Joe Saunders seemed to almost work him out and find out the things that would be working as he went through the fight, and it was the footwork, the movement that was causing Canelo the problems, and also Billy Joe Saunders was willing to throw combinations, and that jab was always in his face, so it was very difficult for Canelo to find his own shots because he always had that jab to deal with. Unless he could get beyond that, then it was going to be difficult for him to find any significant combinations himself to put together. So it was almost like fight fire with fire, but he didn't want to be getting up close and trading with Canelo. That was why he was holding, then pushing him back. Each time he done that, that was a mental victory for Billy Joe Saunders. So I like the way that Billy Joe Saunders approached this fight, and as I said before, I am impressed with his performance against Canelo. But Canelo proved that he was an elite level fighter in that the fight wasn't going his way in the build up to the stoppage. He looked a bit confused, and he wasn't really doing enough. I mean, he was throwing powerful shots, but many of them were not landing, and it just seemed like the tide had turned. Billy Joe Saunders was winning rounds, and he was taking moments in the fight. So had it gone any further, you have to wonder what could have happened. But Canelo managed to find that punch that changed everything, and while it did not knock him out, it was the definitive punch in this fight, and ultimately it led up to Billy Joe Saunders not coming off of his stool after the 8th round. Now, I know that there was those who were booing about Billy Joe Saunders not coming off of his stool, but I don't believe it was his decision, it was his trainer. And that's what they are there to do, to look after their fighter and pull them out if they do not believe he is able to continue. And you could just see what was going to happen. I mean, Billy Joe Saunders from that point, could he have won the fight? I mean, he was doing well and the momentum was going his way, but still you have to wonder, after sustaining an injury like that, is he going to be seeing the punches coming? So he's going to walk onto something, especially given the game plan he would have to carry out for the remainder of this fight to try and get the victory. He was going to end up walking onto something, or Canelo would have landed something else that could have been quite dangerous if it had landed on Billy Joe Saunders. So the trainer made the right choice, Mark Tibbs, and ultimately Billy Joe Saunders' stock has gone up, in my opinion, off of this loss to Canelo, because he proved he was willing to get in there with an elite level fighter. And he did not run away from him. Billy Joe Saunders took the fight to Canelo at times. He was trying to back him up behind the jab, working down to the body, also offering him angles which would make it very difficult for Canelo to set his feet and land those powerful shots down to the body as well. And I mean, it was a good performance from both fighters, but you do have to admire what Billy Joe Saunders done with Canelo in the way he was fighting, but also you have to admire Canelo for being in control early on, then the tide turning, but finding that punch, finding the significant shot that would turn the tide back his way. An elite level fighter is always able to do that, but still, some hairy moments in there for Canelo, and I believe that Billy Joe Saunders has done himself proud. I'm not sure if his super middleweight is a good weight for Billy Joe Saunders. I'm not sure whether he will now move down. I mean, he certainly put in a good performance against Canelo, and I do believe he could still make middleweight. Perhaps that is an option he could explore, going back down to middleweight. Maybe there's a Eubank fight, maybe a Golovkin fight. Demetrius Andrade was there, but that seems like maybe he will fight Canelo more likely than Billy Joe Saunders. At the moment for Billy Joe, it's not about his next move, it's about recovering, regrouping and coming back stronger. Yes, he's no longer undefeated, but what does an undefeated record even mean? Does it matter if you're undefeated or unmatched? I think a fighter would rather be, or should rather be, unmatched as opposed to undefeated. It does not matter if they are undefeated if they do not face fighters like Canelo. Billy Joe Saunders has done it. Yes, he got defeated, but he done it daring to be great. And that is the important thing for a fighter in the position of Billy Joe Saunders, a world champion who is looking to unify against the best in the division. And in this fight, you could see when the turning point happened. I mean, Billy Joe Saunders before was reacting well to the feints that Canelo was giving. And that was what Canelo was trying to do, to try and work him out, to try and slow him down, to try and find that angle on Billy Joe Saunders. But it was after that blow landed, when the injury was sustained, that was when Billy Joe Saunders started reacting more to the feints, because he didn't know when those punches were coming, because he couldn't see them. And that is the important thing. The punch that they do not see is always the worst one, and before that Billy Joe Saunders could almost see and gauge what was coming from Canelo, therefore he was not reacting heavily to the feints, but after the injury he started to react a lot more. Anyway guys, what are your thoughts on this fight? Did you enjoy it? Was it entertaining? And do you believe that the fight did live up to the hype it was built up to be? Where do you think Canelo goes next? Well, it's going to be likely a Caleb Plant fight. That's an interesting fight, but I believe that there is one person who can cause Canelo the most problems aside from Billy Joe Saunders, and that is David Benavidez. Until Canelo gets to him, I don't see many other fighters giving Canelo any problems in and around that weight class. Anyway guys, what are your thoughts on this? Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below, also leave a like and grab that subscribe button. Thanks guys.